Do you hold yourself to very high standards around others? Do you constantly feel as though whatever you do must be perfect, else other people will see you for what you really are? If so, then you're probably shoulding on yourself. In this video, I'll explain to you why that's so harmful and what you can do to begin to change that. Let's get into it. Hey there, I'm Neil and I struggled with social anxiety disorder for more than 2 decades. On this channel, every week, I'll be bringing you the best methods and strategies that I use to feel more confident in my own life. People with social anxiety tend to live by a set of unrealistic and absolute demands that they place on themselves. These are often repeated over and over again as a series of should statements. The types of words that we need to avoid using are the strong, absolute negative words. So these are the words like the can'ts, the have tos, the nevers, the always, the shoulds. These types of words our brains will latch onto and believe more easily because of their nature. And the more time we spend reinforcing these words, then the more difficult it's going to be to begin to change that narrative of our self-talk once we become aware of what we're doing. Examples of how we might use some of these words in a sentence could be saying things like, I hate public speaking, I just can't stand up there and talk in front of all those people. I hate answering the phone, I just can't make phone calls. I should always be able to talk to people without feeling anxious. I hate going to parties, I hate being the centre of attention. It's all these sort of sentences that are very extreme in nature, and we just repeat these to ourselves over and over again when we've got upcoming events, and most of the time we're probably not even aware of it. This is certainly something that I used to do in my own life. I would do it for many years without even noticing what I was doing, and it took a very long time until I actually became aware of it when I actually started going to therapy and doing that sort of thing, before I actually started to really change things and make a real difference in my own life. Although the good thing is, although these words are very extreme, because of how extreme they are in their nature, they can actually be some of the easiest words to identify and statements to change in our daily narrative. Some of the main reasons that you need to stop using this negative self-talk in your day-to-day language is because your brain will believe whatever you say to it, whether you're being rational or not. So if you keep telling yourself that you hate an upcoming event, that you can't give speeches in public, that parties always make you anxious, then your brain is always going to cause you to feel anxious as a result of that. So even if you go to a party, or if you give a speech, or you introduce yourself to people, you could do a really good job there. You could go and meet a bunch of people and do just fine. But if you keep telling yourself that you did a bad job, that you can't do that sort of thing, that introductions always cause you to feel anxious, then you're just going to keep feeling anxious as a result of that. You could be a very good public speaker, you could be very good at meeting new people, and they might think you're a really enjoyable person to be around, but if you keep telling yourself that you don't like doing it, then your brain is constantly going to make you feel anxious. So you could be the best at giving introductions in the world and you'll still feel anxious. Your performance might improve, but as long as your self-talk is negative, then that's always going to be sabotaging you, and these sorts of things will just become self-fulfilling prophecies. We need to learn to begin reframing these thoughts that we're having and turn them into something more positive over time. So the very first step that we could use to do this is to actually notice when we're having one of these negative thoughts. To begin with, that's going to be quite difficult because we've never done it before, and it's going to take quite a long time to make it become a normal thing. We may have hundreds of these thoughts going through our head every single day, possibly even thousands, so it can take quite a while to really learn to catch them. And once we get good at that, we can then start to transition these negative, strong words into something that's neutral to begin with before actually going to more positive. Because if we immediately go to something really positive, then it's going to be quite a jump for our brains, and it'll be quite difficult for our brain to believe that. So we need to take it slow and just gradually transition rather than doing it all in one big jump. Maybe you have an event like a party that's coming up and they have given you a lot of anxiety in the past. Maybe it's too much that you don't think you can go to the party right now, but instead of repeatedly telling yourself that you hate parties, that you can't go to parties, you can instead start to reframe that and say, in the past, parties have caused me a lot of anxiety, and maybe the party is still too much for me right now, but possibly in the next month or two, I might actually feel confident enough to go to one. By beginning to reframe these thoughts, you are interrupting the fire and wire connections in your brain. Your brain will believe what you're saying to it because it is rational, and as a result of that, it will change your underlying behaviors and emotions as a result. Every time you're replacing one of these automatic negative thoughts, you are literally physically altering the circuitry in your brain. Your brain is malleable. It is designed to be able to change. You were not born with social anxiety. Therefore, you can unlearn it. You do not have to feel socially anxious forever. Should statements are a type of cognitive distortion, and changing how you deal with them is part of the cognitive restructuring process, which is part of cognitive behavioral therapy. I will talk in more detail about the many other types of cognitive distortion in future videos. If you enjoyed this video and want to watch more, then check out my next one where I'll be going into more detail about the other types of cognitive distortions and what you can do about them. Thank you so much for watching, and I'll see you in the next one. Cheers.